Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shark in the gun, got the knowledge for the college. Football show breaks down the odds of scholars. 3-unit bangers, stacking cheddar like flowers. Ride the wave to fame, flex in the midnight hours. 9 words of lifestyle, spitting flames, no pity. Dominate the board like kings, ruling the city. Sports, gambling, hustle, money moves so gritty. Cashing tickets every Friday, life looking pretty. Ride the wave, feel the rush, hit your game. Shark in the gun, setting fire to the name. 3-unit bangers, stacking chips, no shame. Friday night sports kings claiming that fame. Analyze stats, break bread, no sweat. 3-point spreads, risk life, major bet. Cash in pockets, feel.
On a suddenly not so casual Friday in October, it is CFB Knowledge for College Week 7, Friday, October 11th, 2024. The Shark and the Gun, right here live on Sharky Waters Nation. Come on over to the chat, people, on X, on YouTube. A beautiful night it is. GunzPicks, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, get into the chat, like Shark said. This is going to be a very interactive show. Is Arpegius, I don't even know if I said that right, has Maryland Northwestern over 4.5. Well, maybe he's asking the question. I'm going to stay away from that game altogether. I do lean towards the first half of Maryland, though. I think that line is heavily weighted towards the Maryland side, of course. Joining Stacks, joining the chat. Fellas, what's good? And, of course, Mob the Candyman in the building. Give him the horn. Let's dominate. And, of course, Martinez in. But we have so many picks to give. Please get into the chat. We're going to talk to you guys. And we have college football plays that pay the bills. We've been cooking with absolute napalm, not only in college football, but in the NFL as well, with a full game sweep on Thursday Night Football. This is why you need to like and subscribe to both of our channels and look at us up on X. Shark, I'm ready to get into the plays. Let's do it.
High noon. Tomorrow it will be Saturday, October 12th, 2024. First play, 4 collab plays this week. We are data abundant in conference season. Going to Piscataway, New Jersey, a place I know very well, a place that is not known for great football historically, but this is a different group, 2024. The first collab of the broadcast, Rutgers on the money line, GunzPicks, unofficial.
Yeah, we're going to Piscataway, New Jersey, where the Sopranos used to reign. It's a very, very difficult situation over there with the Rutgers Shaw Stadium, Piscataway, New Jersey. 12 p.m. is the kick. We have a Wisconsin team coming off a 56-6 win over Purdue. Purdue, bad team. Plus 373 net yards for the game. They are 3-2 on the year, and they're going against a Rutgers team that on the year. Off their first loss, by the way, so they got a little bit of that blood in the back of their throat. Off losing to Nebraska on the road, 14-7, plus 3 net yard average, minus 1 turnover ratio. Might have been the deciding factor in that game. But look at Wisconsin. Wisconsin's wins unimpressive. Western Michigan ranked 115th in Massey Power Rankings. South Dakota, while a great FCS school, still an FCS school and not to the caliber of FBS. And then Purdue, we talked about them. Bad team, 78th in Massey Power Rankings. And Wisconsin losses this year to Bama and USC were embarrassing. So when the step up in class happens, this team falters. They're losing by an average of 24.5 points in those spots, minus 150 net yard average in those situations. And you have Rutgers, run first offense. We've talked about it multiple times on this show. 5 yards per carry, 6.5 yards per carry at home this season. And then Wisconsin can give up rush yards to their opponents, 4.4 yards per carry given up to opponents this season. They're ranked 77th in the country in defensive rush yards per carry. And these two teams met last season at Camp Randall, where Rutgers lost 24-13 as 12.5-point road dogs. Now you're seeing them favored in this spot. Huge line swing from game A to game B. Also, Rutgers at home. Just a great spot, especially when they're favored. 10-2 ATS as the home favorite since 2021. This, to me, is a bounce back spot versus Rutgers. They're coming off the loss to Nebraska. Nebraska, by the way, a good team in the Big Ten. On the road. Now they're back in Piscataway. We saw them beat a Washington team in the same position before. Granted, this is a day game, not a night game, but I digress. Revenge spot indeed. All boxes checked. Line shift as well. Give me Rutgers money line -130 as the play.
As I said, a collab play, an opportunity to dominate. Just elaborating on what Gun said, as I always say, when we have collabs, a lot of great information. The Gun leads me into it. I'll jump off here briefly. Go back to that previous game. That was actually Rutgers' first outright loss of the year. This is the best Rutgers team we have seen under Greg Schiano, in my opinion, since the first stint Schiano had with this university before going to the pros. That was 2008. Ray Rice and a couple guys, the best Rutgers team ever, in my opinion. And this team is right there with them. As Guns mentioned, incredible win against Washington before losing at Nebraska last week. Excuse me, 2 weeks ago. Or no, it was last week.
They lost to Washington 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So they lost to
right.
Nebraska last week. Yes. We're good.
Okay.
Washington,
sure.
then Nebraska. Yes.
Key point, though, this is Matt Rule, Nebraska. This is a very good Nebraska team. So when they go in there and lose 14-7 in a real worm burner type of game, actually outgained Nebraska 264-261, 3 more first downs in the game. So just a really impressive loss if there could be one. And as Guns mentioned, this is a revenge game. This is more than a revenge game. This is a generational buy low. Since Rutgers entered the Big Ten in 2014, they are 0-5 straight up against Wisconsin, never beating them in this conference play. I think more importantly, losing those 5 games on average by 29.8 points per game. So Gunn said it about the line shift. Just consider how strong this is when Rutgers is losing by an average of 30 to this team over a decade. And now they're favored. And as Guns mentioned, Wisconsin sitting here just really, really pedestrian this year. Poor road, only road game of the year. Actually, this clustered home environment to begin the campaign was a non-cover by some margin at USC. And this is a line shift indicating Rutgers to win this game on the average by 14 points. 12 o'clock in New Jersey. Buy it, live it, love it, and let's dominate. Staying at 12 o'clock. CW Network here, North Carolina at home, still at home, where they've been absolutely terrible this year. Georgia Tech at Kenan Stadium, another collab play. GunzPicks, -3.5, 1 unit.
Yeah, unique spot here, and especially seeing the line shift going all over the place during the week. It kind of a little bit alarming, but we love Georgia Tech on this one. And I don't know why people love UNC, but Georgia Tech 24-17 win over Duke, +133 net yard average in that game. They're 4-2 on the year, +122 net yard average, +13-point differential on average. And then you have a UNC team, 3 straight losses, coming off a loss to Pitt, which we capped correctly on that one, 34-24 in that game. They lost a net yardage battle by -104 net yards in that game. On the opposite side of the ball, we got to look at UNC. They need to find success running the ball, and they've had issues in the last 3 games. They put up 4.5, 3.9, 4.2 rushing in the last 3 games, and all of them ended up in losses, which is kind of alarming on that one. Then you have Georgia Tech's defense. Absolutely shifted the dynamic of that defense. They struggled stopping the run last year. They bring the defensive coordinator over from Duke that was under Mike Elko, and that defensive changed their dynamic, especially defending the pass. They've only given up over 300 yards passing in 3 out of their 6 opponents this season. And also against the run, they've given up 3.1 yards per carry this season. Going back to UNC, a lot of issues on the defensive side of the ball, defending the pass. They've given up 300 yards in multiple spots this year. And then they have Georgia Tech's quarterback, Haynes King. He can pass the ball as well as run, but he has a 74% pass completion rate, 8.5 yards per attempt, 8 touchdowns, 1 INT. So not only can he pass the ball, he completes it, and he doesn't make mistakes by throwing picks. This team met every year in the last 3 seasons. Georgia Tech was an 11.5, 21, and a 13.5 point dog against UNC in all those situations, and Georgia Tech won straight up in all 3 spots. And now you're seeing them favored here at 3.5 currently is what I see the line at. Georgia Tech is 5-1 ATS and straight up versus UNC in the last 6 seasons as well. Georgia Tech just historically owns UNC. You could say revenge. You could say look ahead for Georgia Tech, especially when they got Notre Dame in a neutral field at Mercedes-Benz Stadium next week, which I will be watching attentively because Notre Dame needs every win on the planet. But I digress. I think Georgia Tech gets it done here. Doesn't matter what the line is, or even if this is shrinks to a pick 'em, you just get more value on this one. Give me Georgia Tech in this spot, -3.5 as the play.
Yeah, and Guns and I, before the show, we're having a discussion on this, trying to figure out why there's so much steam coming on North Carolina. We thought maybe there's an injury. There is not. So this really goes back to a continuous conversation we have on these shows almost every week. Sometimes there are bad contrarian plays where people just are obsessed with bounce back, obsessed with buy low, but where we say eventually you just reset the expectation and the average at a different place. And that's who the team is. I mean, you start to really look at North Carolina, as Guns was mentioning. This team is 0-4 ATS at home. They have a third-string quarterback. This guy is a gunslinger, but he's extremely volatile. The turnover is imminent almost every single time he drops back to pass. And these non-covers are incredibly unimpressive. Non-cover against FBS bottom feeder Charlotte, non-cover against FCS, NCA&T, came back, got absolutely shellacked against James Madison, giving up 50-plus points in the first half, and then came back home last week. People thought buy low, bounce back, this, and that. No, hit, cover, 10-point win. The point is, this is who this team is, and as Guns mentioned, G-Tech has just flat out dominated a UNC team in previous years with Drake May at the quarterback position. So what are they going to do here now? We think dominate. One of the counterpoints to taking G-Tech is the fact they are 0-2 ATS on the road this year, outright loss at Syracuse and Louisville. But I went through those in terms of the line structure. That was actually a Syracuse revenge game and a slightly short number for G-Tech. So books actually liked Syracuse in that game. And the Louisville game was a Louisville push number, 8.5, 9. So books did lean towards Louisville there. This is the first time the line is on G-Tech on the road this year with immense strength, as Guns mentioned. Last year, October the 28th, 2023, UNC was on the road at -12.5. And now they come back 17 points shorter at home. That's a margin line. It's a potential double-digit win again. And we like G-Tech to continue this dominance against UNC. And again, Mac Brown, really older coach, probably 1 foot out the door, insinuated retirement, resignment after the JMU game. This is not a team you want to buy, even though there are contrarian people buying them. We're on this early week at 5.5. It is -3.5 officially now. Going Big Ten football, 3:30, throw it to the gun. Illinois at home against really a low-level Purdue team this year. FS1 here in Champaign at 3:30. The gun on the first half, -13.5.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to Wine Time, giving you a late night to dinner special here on a Friday night. He likes ASU in the under. He loves Skateable. The running back for ASU in this spot with a ranked opponent here on the road. Interesting game. I'm not on it myself, but we're here to talk about Purdue. We're talking about Illinois Memorial Stadium, Champaign, Illinois. 3:30 is the kick. We have an Illinois team that's 4-1 on the year, plus 13-point differential, plus 37 net yard average. They're coming off a bye week as well. Well rested, well prepared for this one. 21-7 loss to Penn State. A lot closer in the first half, and then Penn State kind of pulled away. And then you have a Purdue team like Sharks said, awful. 1-4 on the year. Their only win versus an FCS opponent in Indiana State. We've been taking advantage of these teams with only one win against an FCS opponent all week long, including Tuesday and Wednesday, and we will continue to do it here. -133 net yard average, -18-point differential on the year for Purdue. Throw out that game versus Indiana State, and let's look at the stats on Purdue. Versus FBS opponents, they have a -274 net yard average and a -35-point differential. This gives you a true indicator how bad this Purdue team is this year, and it is their defense. Their defense is absolutely atrocious. They've given up over 400 yards of total offense to their opponents in all 4 FBS games this season. FBS teams that face Purdue this year put up 140 yards above their offensive season average against them. This is truly a garbage program currently. Purdue also has a turnover problem. They turn it over a lot. Their average is minus 1.2 turnover ratio this season. And of course, they're going against the Ball Hawks of all Ball Hawks in the Illini. They have a +1 turnover ratio average on the year and a +2.6 turnover ratio average at home. And then we're just going to look at the first half splits with Purdue versus FBS opponents. Purdue has been outscored 80-13. That's right, 80-13 in the first half, trailing by an average of 16.8 points per game in the first half. Then you look at Illinois, outscored their opponents 57-16 at home in the first half this season and stayed within Penn State's number in the first half. The game was tied 7-7. And by the way, Penn State is a good team, highly ranked team, and they meet all my statistical analytics. That's a good program, and we'll see it down the road. I digress. The line is also weighted towards the first half, and what I mean by weighted means a lot of the full game spread is geared towards the first half more than it is the second half. 55-60% of the full game line, depending on what book you get it at, is weighted in the first half. Also, it's a revenge game for Illinois. Illinois lost to Purdue 44-19 last year, where the line was a pick'em. A pick'em. Full game for this is 22.5 and 23, depending on what book you get it at. That is the biggest line swing I've seen in decades, from game 1 to game 2. I think this is the first half is the way to go to kind of protect yourself. I don't know how good Illinois is going to really care about this team in the first half, especially if they get a lead. I think they have a big opponent next week, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it in front of me right now, so I kind of don't want to take it on the full game. But I think because the line is weighted here in the first half, that's the way to go here. So I'm going to go Illinois minus 13.5, first half as the play.
My next play is going MAC football. This is where MAC football becomes accessible in conference season. I got two plays, going to run through them back to back. First play, 12 noon in Kent, Ohio, taking the over at 58.5 for 1 unit. And this is Ball State 1-4 straight up versus Kent State 0-5 straight up. So this is truly bottom feeder football. But what is bottom feeder football really defined by? A lack of defense. Ball State is giving up 48.2 points per game, and Kent State is giving up 51.4 points per game. So when you see that, you might say to yourself, all right, that was out of conference, big time teams just running up and down on these guys, including Tennessee running up 76 on Kent State earlier this year. But if you actually zoom into their MAC trends, Ball State is 2-0 versus MAC conference overs this year. 37-34 against Central Michigan, way over 49.5, and 45-42 against Western Michigan last week, way over 57.5. And Kent State, in their only MAC game this year, week 5, versus Eastern Michigan, 52-33. There is basically no scenario in this game tomorrow that will find these teams not scoring at will. And if you really go through the line functionality, because we are in conference season now, so we can use this, the last 2 years, both went under 27-20, under 61.5 in the fall of 2022. And I think more importantly, last year, November 18th, 2023, Ball State 34-3, under 41.5. So books moved the line significantly down last year to 41.5, and it went under. And now they're moving it up at open to 59.5. That's an 18-point jump, season 1 to season 2. Huge expectancy here. I have this game graded at 78 points. Buy this one, and let's score the ball. Staying in the MAC, taking Miami of Ohio on the money line, minus 130, 2 o'clock in Ypsilanti, Michigan. This is just a classic historical buy low, fade high. Miami of Ohio is 1-4 straight up, a road favorite versus Eastern Michigan, who is 4-1 straight up. Your eyes should light up. Why is a road team 1-4 favored over a 4-1 home team in conference play? I'll tell you why. Miami of Ohio losses Northwestern, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, Toledo, who is the class of the MAC. Eastern Michigan wins UMass, Jacksonville State, FCS St. Francis, and the aforementioned 0-5 bottom feeder in the MAC, Kent State. Eastern Michigan has one of, if not the most fraudulent 4-1 records in FBS football right now, and that is why they're a home underdog to an upstart Miami team. Last time these teams played was a couple years ago. Miami was a road favorite, lost the game by 1. They're a heavier favorite at open now. We have Miami to win this game for the sake of Ben Roethlisberger and Wally Zerbiak on the road in Ypsilanti, -130. More collab plays, evening plays, 7 o'clock, big time stuff. Sun Belt football, throwing it to the gun. I have the first half in this game. GunzPicks, Texas State, -13.5.
Yeah, I was looking at the reports. Looks like Ben Roethlisberger will be on the sideline for Miami, Ohio, wearing the boot to give
right?
people. No, I'm joking. I mean, come on, no. I wanted to shout out the Stacks, always dropping plays everywhere they go. Check out his stuff. He loves the team total over in the 35.5 with Alabama. I can't talk you off of that one, especially Alabama getting pistol whipped. No pun intended by Vandy, where they carried their goalpost 3 miles, I heard, to the river to go throw that in there. And he loves the over in the Texas-Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. You can't say shootout anymore, but that is what he likes there. And of course, Oregon. I don't agree with that one, but we'll see how that goes there. But we're here to talk about Arkansas State versus Texas. Bobcat Stadium, say Majos, Texas. 7 p.m. is the kick. And you have a Texas Tech State team that is 3-2 on the year, plus 13-point differential, plus 116 net yard average, going against an Arkansas State team that is 3-2 on the year, but they have a -9-point differential, -89 net yard average. Now, Texas offense is explosive. They put up 455 yards of total offense, 4.6 yards per carry on the ground, 286 yards per game passing, and their O-line has only given up 5 sacks all season for a 2.8% sack rate. So you're not going to get to Jordan McLeod on the pass rush there, Arkansas State. Arkansas State's defense has also given up over 400 yards of total offense to their opponents on average, 5.8 yards per carry on the ground, 215 yards per game passing. And then you have an Arkansas State offense that is not much better. They only average 317 yards of total offense versus FBS opponents, 2.7 yards per game on the ground, but passes for 251 yards per game. Now, Texas State has done well versus the pass this season, holding opponents to 53.3% pass completion rate, and they get to the quarterback well with the pass rush with an 11.5% sack rate. If you look at the defense from 2023 to now, completely flipped. Texas State has a defense, and this is why I love Texas State overall in the season. Also, Texas State is keeping receipts in the Sun Belt, and this is one of them. They lost to Arkansas State 77-31 as 3.5-point road favorites, and now they are 13.5, 14.5, depending on what book you got. I'm seeing 13.5 consistently consensus on the board at currently. But Chuck and I talked about this before the show, and we were alarmed by the outliers that were in this game. We've never seen a box score this incredible when we look at this game. You got, like I said, 77-31 was the score. Arkansas State had a fumble return for a touchdown, a 93-yard kickoff return, 2 INT pick sixes, and Texas State fumbled on their own 15-yard line, which resulted in a TD. 35 points were a result of non-offensive scores. Anomaly that you never see in any single. I've never seen a box score this crazy in my entire life. You don't think this Texas State team is going to be fired up to go beat Arkansas State after what happened to them last year? It checks all the boxes. A misleading outcome from a previous game. You have the revenge angle. a better offense and a better defense than what you were last year. Texas State has, with Jordan McLeod running that offense, so much better, and that defense got better, switching the DC as well. Big line swing from game A to game B. Texas State all the way should dominate this regardless of the line. I got 13.5, and I'm going to stick with that one. Texas State minus 13.5 is the play.
Yeah, jumping off that, I'm on the first half officially at minus 7.5. And going book to book, the sharpest domestic U.S. book that I have found for line splits, first half versus game, is FanDuel. And we referenced you guys last week when FanDuel had a really, really heavy Ole Miss first half split, and you saw what happened. FanDuel opened this at minus 9.5 versus 14.5 game, which is 65.5%, which is incredibly strong for the first half. And I started going through Texas State at home in the first half. They're 2-1 ATS, and they've been very dominant. They should be 3-0 ATS. They covered against FCS Lamar in the opener, 18-0. I went through that. A couple outliers in the first half. They stalled on the goal line, missed a field goal, and fumbled in the red zone. Very easily could have been a 30-point lead at the half. Total domination. Came back the following week. Speaking of total domination, on September 7th against UTSA at home, just a blowout. 35-3 in the first half. And the following week against Arizona State, did not cover the first half as a small favorite. They were up 21-7 at the 5:16 mark of the second quarter and proceeded to give up 2 touchdowns to Arizona State in the final 3:46 of the half, including a pretty egregious 7-yard rushing touchdown at the 6-second mark of the second quarter. This is just college football. You never, ever would see a running play with 6 seconds to go in the half on the 7-yard line in the NFL. They gave it up, but the moral of the story is they were dominant there too. So you want to buy low. This is where they perform great. And Arkansas State, 0-1 ATS first half on the road, coming off of a cover at home last week in conference against South Alabama. This is where this team performs well at home in the first half, goes on the road, and does not perform. And as Guns mentioned, this is an overwhelming motivational spot for Texas State. He went through the details. I will just say with emphasis, it is historically so rare to find a team lose by 46 points with 9 more first downs in the game. Arkansas State lost 77-31, and they had 32 first downs versus only 23 for Arkansas State. You're buying low on a historical outlier, and it is beautiful stuff. On the first half at minus 7.5, the Gun on the game at minus 13.5. Final collab play of the broadcast. The Gun is wearing a beautiful hat, and I will throw it to him for an official Tennessee in the first half at 7 p.m.
Feels like 98. Well, it did last week because Arkansas took you out, but we may have a spot here for Tennessee on the bounce back. You have a Tennessee team coming off a road loss as a double-digit favorite to Arkansas, like I mentioned, 19-14, and you have a Florida team coming off of back-to-back wins, 24-13 win over UCF, and plus 86 net yards in that game, and they have a plus 6 point differential, plus 16 net yards on the year. Tennessee, while putting up some big numbers on the offensive side in the first 3 games, they came back to earth in their next 2 games, only putting up 345 yards of total offense against Oklahoma State and 332 yards of offense versus Arkansas. That doesn't look great. However, they put up 26 yards above Oklahoma's defensive season average and 13 yards above Arkansas's defensive season average. So outliers there. You have to look at these two defenses. It was just a step up in class as far as the defense is concerned. And Tennessee actually did better than what those teams have faced overall this season on average. And then you have a Florida's defense struggled on the defensive side of the ball. They've given up 525 yards of total offense to Miami, 488 yards to A&M, 480 yards to Mississippi State. Mississippi State is terrible, and you gave up 480 to them. The primary issue for Florida is stopping the run. They give up 4.4 yards per carry to Miami, 5.6 yards per carry to Texas A&M, 4.6 yards per carry versus Mississippi State. And Tennessee can beat you in a lot of ways, but their run is solid. Okay. They average 5.7 yards per carry on the ground this season, and they have surpassed 150 rushing yards or more in every single game this year. And Tennessee's defense is great. This year, they're holding opponents to 228 yards per game and hold their opponents to 132 yards below their opponent offensive season average. Tennessee has a defense now, folks, is what I'm saying. Now you have Florida. They've owned this historically. So there's a lot of revenge here with Tennessee because they've struggled with Florida. 6-1 straight up in ATS, Florida is in the last 7 meetings. And that includes a 29-16 win over Tennessee, where Tennessee was favored by 5.5 points at home. Now the line is sitting here at 15.5 in favor of Tennessee. Huge line swing from game A to game B. Then you have Tennessee 11-3 ATS as a home favorite since 2022 because Tennessee's playing at home this year, and the home team is between Tennessee and Florida is 7-2 ATS. So you have to take the home team when these situations arise. I like Tennessee because you have the revenge angle, the line shift from last year from game A to game B. Tennessee is just a stronger team this year than Florida is, and Florida and Tennessee is off a loss, probably looking ahead to this particular spot. I will say that is theorizing, but looking at the first half, I always look at the first half line to see if they're waiting. You have Tennessee has dominated the first half, outscoring opponents by, guess what, 149-9 this season. Granted, they played a lot of weaker teams, but Tennessee likes to come out of the gate smoking in all their games. And you have Florida. They've only outscored their opponents 76-61, but they played a pretty weak schedule. And nearly 60% of the full game line is weighted to the first half. High indicator that Tennessee is going to come out of the gate smoking. So I'm going to be taking Tennessee here. First half, -8.5 as the play.
Align completely. I'll just jump off it for emphasis. The key point, as I mentioned with the previous first half total or line with Texas State, I go to FanDuel to see the split. FanDuel had this, and I think they still have it at -9.5 on a -14.5, which is actually identical to the Texas State spot, 65.5%. We're on -8.5. That is a DraftKings line. I think most other books as well. But as Guns mentioned, this Tennessee team just comes out with insane quality in the first half, and you're finding a great buy low off their only non-cover of the first half all year, a loss at Arkansas. But the key point there, before that, let's go through these games. Guns mentioned it. I'll give you a little more detail. It's just absolute domination. Week 1, 45-0 against Chattanooga at the half. 45-0. That's actually higher than the game line. The game was -13.5. They covered the game in the first half. Versus NC State, 20-3 first half. The game line was -13.5. They covered the game line in the first half there. Against Kent State, as I mentioned before, 65-0 at the half. 65-0. Game line was only -49.5. They covered the game line in the first half there as well. And at Oklahoma, 19-3. Game line -5.5. So when they come out in these spots, they cover the game line in the first half, not just the first half line. And the game line sitting here at 14.5. It opened at 16.5. We foresee this to be at least a 17-point win here. And as Guns mentioned, this is a big-time revenge game. Lost on the road last year in Gainesville by 13. And if you really look at the situation that Florida is in, Florida is actually 1-0 ATS in the first half on the road. But I think this is very specific. That particular game was coming off of a blowout loss at home to Texas A&M. So they got crushed at home, went out on the road as a road favorite, key point, and performed well as a bounce back. Last week, they did come out and cover the first half at home against UCF. So now it's the opposite. Off a home cover, go on the road. Extremely angry Tennessee team here. And I'm actually going to be adding this officially right now, taking the game as well at -14.5. I think this is an absolute blowout. I foresee this game falling somewhere over 27 points. at final margin. And so I just want to make that official now. Minus 14.5 as well.
Good old Rocky Top. Woo! Rocky Top, Tennessee.
Gonna be an absolute hammer at 7 o'clock. So that's the show for tonight. CFP Knowledge for College Week 7. The Shark and the Gun. My top plays: Rutgers money line, G-Tech minus 5.5, 3.5 now. Ball State, Kent State over 58.5. Miami of Ohio minus 130. Texas State first half minus 7.5. And Tennessee first half minus 8.5. Game minus 14.5. GunzPicks collaboration play: Rutgers money line, collab G-Tech at minus 3.5 there. Illinois first half minus 13.5. Texas State game minus 13.5. And Tennessee first half minus 8.5. And our guy says Florida covers easy. Apparently what we say means absolutely nothing. Best of luck. It's a beautiful Friday night. Hope you guys are having some drinks, getting some fitness, enjoying your life, sending you guys all the best vibes. GunzPicks, a pleasure as always. Close them out with some words and let's dominate.
Yeah, chat was beautiful today. Of course, Stack sharing some players. Bob the Candyman coming in. 29 being in the build. Of course, Sox Nation, we love you, baby. I know you've been against some of our picks, but I think most of those are L's more than dubs. So you better be changing your tune when you're dealing with the Shark of the Gun, because we are on an absolute heater and we will continue to be. Of course, you got to check out the extra points coming out on Sunday. It's going to be a pre-record this week. Of course, I'm going to be out at a wedding on Sunday, but we will still give you the plays that pay the bills. That'll be released at 10 a.m. East on the Shark Water Station channel. Go check that out. And of course, we will continue to dominate the sport that is football. And we will be back here Sunday. So go check us out. Follow us on all social media platforms on X at Shark Waters Nation. Actually, at Sharks in Sports 88 and GunzPicks. And we will see you on Sunday, 10 a.m. And let's dominate the board. Let's cash some tickets. I did it reverse this time. And as always, let's keep dancing.